Good evening. It's 8 p.m. here local time in Warsaw. Welcome to World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. Coming up, elections that should never have occurred. The former Law and Justice government is guilty of attempting to organize a vote in the midst of a pandemic, bypassing procedures and acting unlawfully. Now, these are the findings of a parliamentary committee's report published earlier today. Now, more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. London, Paris, Rome, and Berlin. President Zelenskyy is trying to convince allies to provide more support to Ukraine. A dispute concerning ambassador nominations is taking place between the Polish president and prime minister. Affected areas in southern Poland are still recovering from recent floods. The Polish Parliament's investigative committee on Mailin elections has submitted its final report. Now, citing numerous abuses, it recommends serious charges towards key figures of the previous Law and Justice government. Krzysztof Panek reports.
In May of 2020, the COVID pandemic was raging across the world. At the same time, Poland was scheduled to hold its presidential election. The government, then run by the Law and Justice Party, made preparations to hold them entirely by mail, citing the risk of infection. The plan ultimately failed, as doubts about the security of such elections caused both the opposition and parts of the coalition to oppose it. The new government decided to investigate the preparations for those elections.
Politicians of the Law and Justice Party decided to make an unconstitutional attempt to hold the election solely by mail. They wanted to give the power to conduct these elections to the Polish Post, while the constitution says clearly that only the National Electoral Commission has such power.
The Parliamentary Committee on the Mail-in Election submitted its final report on Thursday. It recommends charges for 19 people, including Law and Justice politicians and employees of state companies. Among them are former Prime Ministers Jarosław Kaczyński and Mateusz Morawiecki, as well as the head of the Polish Post. The Law and Justice Party and its allies have dismissed the report as a political witch hunt.
The report can be thrown away immediately. The state is in a terrible condition. The government is not doing what it should be doing, namely running the country. They are really just persecuting the opposition, and this is one example of that.
Apart from the parliamentary committee, the prosecution service is also conducting investigations into plans for the mail-in election.
The Supreme Administrative Court has ruled that the Prime Minister acted without a legal basis when he ordered the Polish Post and the Polish Security Printing Works to conduct these elections.
The current coalition alleges that the Law and Justice government wanted to conduct the election at the time due to favorable polls. Law and Justice, in turn, claims its political opponents wanted to derail the mail-in election in order to replace their candidate with someone more popular. The election was eventually held in late June of 2020 and ended with the victory of the candidate supported by Law and Justice, Duda.
Russian IT specialists were easily able to enter Poland during the cash for visas scandal that took place between 2018 and 2023. Now, Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski held a press conference today to address the Supreme Audit Office's newly released report regarding the scandal. Our reporter, Karolina Stoltzman, has more.
The Polish Supreme Audit Office has just released a detailed report about the cash for visas scandal. Now, of course, apart from the information about the financial misconduct surrounding the scandal, there's also information about who these illegally obtained visas benefited, who received those visas, who was in turn allowed to come into Poland, and in turn the EU, and of course the Schengen zone. Now, clearly the cash for visas scandal has proven very dangerous, not only for Poland itself, but also for the entire European Union as it battles Putin's hybrid war.
The report by the Supreme Audit Office is devastating. The Law and Justice government granted 5 million visas to Russians over the course of 5 years. 2,000 Russians were granted Polish visas after the invasion of Ukraine, often in violation of the law and sanctions. Where were Duda, Kaczyński and Morawiecki when that was happening? Visa applicants in this category should have been the target of special scrutiny by the previous government. I understand the counter-argument that this category of IT professionals was crucial to Putin's ability to prosecute his war, and their leaving Russia could be a desirable thing.
Now, the foreign minister has announced that his ministry has taken new measures to better manage the visa system in Poland. Some of the measures include increasing the prices of the visas. Now, these new measures introduced by their ministry are reportedly, according to the foreign minister, in line with the new migration policies that will be announced by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in the coming days. For TVP World, from Warsaw, Karolina Stolzman.
The spat between the Polish government and President Andrzej Duda over the recall of ambassadors continues to intensify. Now, Prime Minister Donald Tusk criticized Duda's refusal to dismiss the recalled ambassadors and his obstruction of the appointment of new officials as irresponsible. Franciszek Pilis reports.
Since March of this year, some Polish embassies around the world have been missing their most key components, their ambassadors. Shortly after being chosen for the role, the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs decided to end the diplomatic mission of some 50 Polish ambassadors, recalling them back to their home country and asking the president to approve their dismissal. Andrzej Duda, however, did no such thing, leaving the documents without his signature while blocking the appointment of new ambassadors.
The total number of new ambassador appointments approved by President Andrzej Duda since the new government was created is 0. I didn't get a single signature from the president under any ambassador appointment, even in areas where the president said he'd cooperate.
After some 7 months of deadlock, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has had enough.
It's irresponsible of the president to continue blocking nominees for ambassadors in places like the United States, Israel, Ukraine or NATO. I asked and I pleaded, but to no avail. I know we have 299 days left, but that's still 299 days too many. Security above all, Mr. President.
The Polish president immediately took to X, formerly Twitter, to defend his stance and add more fuel to the already blazing fire. In his post, he blamed the lack of ambassadors in Polish embassies on Prime Minister Tusk's and the Polish Foreign Ministry's decision to forcibly recall officials from those embassies.
It certainly doesn't make us stronger because we should have proper ambassadors on every international post. But, well, it's the government's duty to do it. If they do it properly, if they present candidacies to the president in a proper way, I'm sure there will be cooperation because the president was willing to do it from the very beginning.
As for who's currently carrying out Poland's diplomatic mission, it's a lineup of chargé d'affaires, as the row over Polish ambassadors looks nowhere close to being resolved anytime soon.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is on a charm offensive across Europe as he aims to strike deals for military aid despite the cancellation of the Ramstein summit. Our Aaron Damon reports.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy is a man on a mission. First the handshake, then a small smile from the Ukrainian president. But even the appearance of Larry, the Downing Street cat, can't hide the fact that it's been a tough week.
Very good to welcome you.
With the public reveal of Zelenskyy's victory plan put on ice after the delay of the Ramstein summit, he's taken matters into his own hands.
I will meet separately in each country with the leaders of Britain, France, Italy and Germany. I will try to do this quickly.
A whistle-stop tour across the region, London, Paris and Rome today, an audience with the Pope tomorrow morning, then off to Berlin.
After the cancellation of the meeting of the Ramstein group, it's obvious that he would seek support among all the leaders, Europeans specifically.
There's another likely objective too, locking in military aid before next month's crucial US election. Although new NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte is playing down the impact that vote will have on Europe.
Really, stop worrying about a Trump presidency. We do not know who will win. I will work with Kamala Harris if she is chosen. I will work with Donald Trump.
It comes as more details emerge of Ukraine's fresh push for peace.
Ukraine's ambassador to Turkey has announced that the country is planning to organize a new peace summit before the end of the year with Russia's involvement. However, the country has ruled out any direct bilateral talks between the two nations.
For now, Zelenskyy's European tour of diplomacy continues.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen visited Moldova on Thursday in a bid to shore up support for EU integration as the nation approaches a presidential election and referendum on EU membership. Our Sasha Farbach reports.
Thank you very much.
It was a visit by friends showing support in troubled times. This was evident since Ursula von der Leyen wants to show that Moldova can count on Brussels every step of the way. The chief of the European Commission pledged a €1.8 billion economic package, and she made sure to underline that the future is in the hands of the people of Moldova.
It is for you, the Moldovans, to decide. It is your sovereign choice what to do with your country, and no one can interfere.
Interference by Moscow is precisely what the pro-EU government of Maia Sandu and the rest of Europe fears. European institutions warned against Russia's actions to derail Moldova's European path.
A key part of this strategy is Russia's disinformation campaign, which is specifically targeting the referendum to discredit the government's pro-EU policies by falsely portraying a lack of popular support for European integration.
Moscow's tactics remain dubious, with the Moldovan oligarch even offering payments to those who vote no in the upcoming referendum. The hope is the EU's plan will win the long game for Moldovans.
The long-term perspective of European integration is has far greater benefits for Moldova than the short gains that they might get from Ilan Shor, the fugitive oligarch.
Putin's long shadow is a concern as Moldova's unity remains on shaky ground. Keeping Moldova on a European path and away from the Kremlin matters for the whole region.
Having Moldova in their pocket would give them a chance to not only threaten Ukraine from different directions, but also stepping stone towards southeastern Europe and Balkans, which are quite vulnerable.
The EU was built on peace and common prosperity, and Brussels is counting on the fact that future prosperity will be something that all Moldovans desire.
Chiefs of staff of the armed forces of the Visegrad Group countries met for close talks today in Gdynia, in northern Poland. Now, NATO's 4 Central European members are close military allies, but politically, they've been drifting further apart. Our reporter, Marek Steele, is in Gdynia and has the story.
The chiefs of staff of Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary met today here in Gdynia, northern Poland, to speak about the most important issues when it comes to security in this part of Europe. The meeting was devoted to Poland taking over the presidency in the Visegrad Group, but also it was devoted to military cooperation between these 4 countries within different structures such as NATO. So the meeting here today began with an official ceremony. Then the generals attended a closed-door meeting. Afterwards, they observed exercises here in the Gdańsk Bay. Although politically, the V4 group has been drifting further apart, Poland and Czech Republic taking a more pro-European path, Hungary and Slovakia have been choosing a pro-Russian often and pro-Chinese path. Despite this fact, when it comes to military cooperation, when it comes to security, the V4 stands united. Marek Steele, TVP World.
Poland's previously flooded areas are slowly but surely rising from the ashes. Now, under Operation Phoenix, thousands of Polish soldiers are rebuilding ruined towns and villages. Our reporter, Kazimierz Łysiak, has more from the south of Poland.
We are currently in the town of Głuchołazy in southern Poland. This was one of the first places to be hit by the massive floods in September. Now, we all remember the horrific pictures of the bridge, which is right behind me, which was taken down by the flood wave. As you can see, most of it is destroyed. Now, today, we have here soldiers from the Polish Armed Forces, the engineers who came here under Operation Phoenix to help rebuild this place. If you can follow me for just a moment, you will see here this temporary bridge, which was set up by them in just 3 days. And on Friday, they will take it up with a huge crane and place it back over here, over the river. Now, the soldiers who are here, they have been cooperating with the locals, bringing repairs, helping people all around here to bring this place back to normal.
I've been here since September 16th. The difference is striking. We managed to clean up a lot. The roads are now accessible and there is much less trash on the streets. We put up several temporary bridges before this one to allow emergency services to cross quickly.
On Thursday, one of the Polish parliamentary committees presented a report of the works of soldiers under Operation Phoenix. Currently, there are about 30,000 soldiers helping with repairs all over the country, trying to bring all these places not only back to normal, but better, so they can defend themselves in the future against the effects of such floods. From Głuchołazy, TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiak.
Hurricane Milton is passing through the United States and has put millions of people at risk. Now, at least several people have been confirmed dead so far. Now, we're moving to Florida, where our reporter, Alex Sumlinsky, is right now. Hello, Alex. What is the situation currently on the ground? What have you experienced yourself? What are you seeing?
Good evening, Diana. Well, that's right. As of now, 10 people have been confirmed dead due to the impact of Hurricane Milton. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis has said that emergency services are involved in dozens of rescue operations, but he has said that he expected the situation to stabilize. Now, here in Daytona Beach, as you can probably see behind me, I mean, the impact of this hurricane was very big. In the background, you can see parts of a roof of a hotel that was just totally ripped off. And this is something that we have seen throughout parts of this city. Now, in some areas, the flooding on the streets is so bad that if you don't have a car with the right weight depth, you simply cannot continue on your journey. We have seen people either get stuck in these waters because they drove in with cars that were just too low. Some people simply turning around and just not being able to continue their trip. Now, as of now, we also know that 3 million people here in Florida are without power. And then, but the good news is that people have, from what I've been hearing, people have heeded the warnings and have taken shelter. Just yesterday, when we were in the central part of Florida, we learned that from the central part of Florida all the way up to the north to Georgia, all hotels had been booked. You simply could not find a room if you wanted to find one. Here also in Daytona, I also spoke to residents who also left their homes and sought shelter in safer areas, simply in higher ground. Now, some of them were telling me that their neighbors had stayed behind and told them that their houses were in fact okay. However, the closer you get to the ocean, you really see the impact and the damage just coming over here. We saw many houses that were flooded with no residents in them, and these people are just going to have to return and rebuild their homes. Another issue is this floodwater. Authorities are saying you have to be very careful because you simply do not know what is inside that water. There can be downed cables, which I have seen a lot, as well as broken glass. However, I would like to end on a positive note because experts are saying that the center of Hurricane Milton is moving away from Florida, some 135 miles northeast. Back to you, Diana.
Alex, those were definitely some horrific footage to watch, and particularly also when you're standing right in front of that, how you said, broken roof. Please stay safe, and we'll be coming back to you throughout the evening for more updates from Daytona on this horrific hurricane that's been hit. Thank you, Alex. South Korea's Han Kang wins the Nobel Prize for Literature. Now, she's the first Asian woman to receive this prestigious award. Bogumil Radajewski from TVP Nauka has more.
The Nobel Prize Committee in Literature has decided to go against all the predictions this year and award the prize to Han Kang from South Korea for her intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. Han Kang was not mentioned among the top contenders for this year's prize. However, it's not entirely unexpected, as earlier she has been, for instance, awarded the Booker Award, one of the most prestigious ones in the world of literature. Among people who were actually meant to receive this year's award, it was mentioned that probably the committee is going towards someone from outside of Europe, as the prize in previous years have been awarded to authors from European countries. It was also predicted that it's probably going to be a woman, since last year the prize went to Jon Fosse from Norway, and in the recent years the Nobel Prize Committee has been known to follow a rule that if 1 year the prize in literature is being awarded to a man, then the next year it's going to probably be a woman, and vice versa. It is also worth mentioning that Han Kang is the first Nobel Prize laureate in literature from South Korea. Stockholm, Bogumił Radejewski.
In 2020, Poland's presidential elections proceeded despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, at the time, the ruling Law and Justice Party attempted to organize a vote in the midst of the crisis, bypassing procedures and acting unlawfully. Now, this is what the newly released Parliamentary Commission report concluded just earlier today. And joining me now to further explore this, I'm pleased to welcome Marcin Bosacki, a Polish MP from the Civic Coalition. Mr. Bosacki, thank you so much for being with us here on World News Tonight on TVP World.
Good evening.
So now, this report came out today. It was a highly protested decision to conduct these elections in 2020. And the questions that we ask ourselves here is whether these elections actually met the constitutional requirement. Were they fair? Were they reliable? Now, Mr. Bosacki, how close was Poland to face a constitutional crisis at the time?
No, it was pretty close because the ruling party, PiS, wanted to push unconstitutional elections at the time with Mr. Duda, obviously their candidate, because the public opinion polls were okay for him. But they did wanted to do it by totally vote by mail, avoiding, which Constitution clearly states, the National Election Committee, and putting the organizing work of the elections in the hands of National Post, which was first never heard of in Poland history, and second, it was clearly against the law. And what prevented that was actually the actions of the Polish Senate, which at that time I was a member of, which delayed the voting on the law enabling this to happen, and secondly, of majority of Polish local authorities, the presidents of cities, the heads of smaller local municipalities like villages, which didn't provide National Post with the list of citizens required and able to vote. So it didn't happen by a small margin of error, but nevertheless, the government at that time spent 80 million, at least 80 million zlotys on the elections which didn't happen. And which shouldn't have happened. So the Special Investigative Committee of Polish Parliament now presented today its final report, requesting the prosecutor's office to file cases against the former Prime Minister Morawiecki, at that time Deputy Prime Minister Jarosław Kaczyński, and many others, including Mr. Sasin, the very powerful minister at that time, because you cannot do something what is first against the law, and second to spend millions and millions of taxpayers' money to waste.
Earlier today, we heard one of the members of the Law and Justice Party say that this was actually what's going on was a witch hunt against that leadership. What can you comment on this?
No, Prime Minister Donald Tusk said it, I think, yesterday, that when our base, the pro-democratic coalition base, people who voted for us and voted peace government out of the office a year ago, is accusing us of being too slow in dealing with obvious cases of breaking the law during the 8 years of peace government. And at the same time, peace is accusing us of witch hunt and even torturing some of the people who are in jail already for cases of fraud or bribery and others. Therefore, probably we are doing something quite okay. That this path which Prosecutor General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Bodnar, chose to go, so to go as quickly as possible, but according to law, with no shortcuts being made, but the prosecutor's office is taking every case one by one and investigating that and then putting to courts. This is okay.
So, Mr. Bosatsky, should this leadership, the top politicians of the Law and Justice Party, should they be convicted? What are some of the consequences that we're looking at?
You know, it's not for a politician, active politician as myself, to suggest to the courts what they should do. But I'm absolutely sure that the Polish prosecutors, independent prosecutors, this is the difference between what's going on now and what peace tried to do and in many cases did during the last 8 years, that independent prosecutors will look into the cases and then most likely, I think, present their cases to the courts. And then courts, with the full guarantee of defense for peace politicians, will decide whether they committed crimes or not.
What role do you think the Polish president played in all of this?
You know, he was a candidate at that time. I don't think there's any, at least I don't know of, any proof that he himself wanted or manipulated the other branches of government to do those earlier elections in 2020 by post, by mail, to be conducted. You know, then it was horrible because nobody knew who actually would count the votes.
But at the end, he won anyway. I mean, Duda won anyway.
Yes. 2 months later, he won by a very, very small margin of votes. But then it was made as the law requires that to be made. So in the polling stations with full possibility of campaigning, although at that time TVP was extremely biased towards him and criticized the opposition candidate, Mr. Trzaskowski, all the time, 24 hours by 7. But, you know, it was legitimate elections. The one they wanted to do and for which they spent over 80 million zlotys were absolutely illegitimate.
And just very briefly, because we're almost out of time, Mr. Bosatsky, I just want to shift you on a little bit of another topic here in Poland that's coming out with this spat between recalling back ambassadors and the Polish president and prime minister not being able to see eye to eye. What do you think are the broader implications of this dispute? I mean, you were Poland's ambassador to Canada. I had the pleasure of meeting you in Ottawa when I still lived there. What is the dispute, the broader implications for this between the ruling party and its relationship with the president, just briefly?
It's very unfortunate because President is stonewalling the government's effort to send new ambassadors to, in some cases, like Israel, there is no Polish ambassador for over 3 years because of the crisis in Polish-Israeli relations made by the previous peace government with Israel over 3 years ago. So now we want to send new envoys to many countries. And President, it would be, reasonable if he would say in 1 or 2 or 3 cases, I prefer another candidate. That's his role in the Polish government system. constitutional role, but he refuses to sign the documents for new ambassadors, for over 50 ambassadors now. Most of them highly trained professional diplomats. That's horrible for the interests of the country.
And to see how all this will play out in a relatively close period of time. Thank you so much, Mr. Marcin Bostacki, Polish MP from the Civic Coalition. Thank you so much for being with us here on World News Tonight on TVP World. And that's all for this edition here of World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.